Hey, hello, my fellow car modelers. How are you doing today? I am not going to be blowing my face off like I usually do in my model car vlogs. No, this is a different one. This was no controversy here. I just got a quick, it's just happened now. I just thought I'd turn the camera on and share this with you. I was on the Facebook group, the Luka Model Car Hobby Headquarters Facebook group. And lo and behold, there's just, sometimes this is something I talk about, like the box art or these kits, or, it's like music. When you hear a tune from the 70s, from your childhood, or 80s, or whenever you were a child, or at high school, or just a few years ago, that music will, like a time machine, take you right back to a moment. Well, these model kits do that a lot to us too. I bet you all will agree with me on this. It's pretty cool. And just seeing someone just post about a model, just curious about a model, want to know if anybody built it. And I just saw this post and I just went, wow, a memory just came rushing through. It's Raymond Dismain. I hope I said your name right, Raymond. But yeah, it's this 34 coupe that came out, 34 Ford coupe, hot rod. Apparently, I guess it was a lot of people call it the California Kid. It's kind of in that style. Came out from Revell. That particular kit, that box art, it just rang a bell with me. And I just wanted to share it with you because it just got me thinking about, you have these people that come in your life, especially older folk. I don't know if these, sometimes as young kids, we were this way. You can't go and say, these freaking kids today, they don't show us respect. We were always like that. We looked at the old people lots of times and it's like, and we showed them respect, but it's like, these idiots. But I don't know. I've always liked having older people in my life. I always would take advantage of their wisdom and knowledge, and anything that I did when I was a kid, when I was coming up in music. If I met somebody who was in a band in the 60s, I would meet these guys. I did construction. They were at I had long hair and all that stuff, and they'd give me crap, but it was that way back in the 80s. But, I remember meeting a couple of guys that go, yeah, I used to play this or that back in the 60s, where a lot of my generation of metalheads would kind of look at these guys and kind of goof at them. They thought 60s bands were a goof, but it's like, well, that's where our music evolved from. And I would always want to get into talking to these guys and hearing the stories about what it was like being in a band way back in the 60s, which really wasn't that far along when it's 1985, but it's kind of like that. Anytime when I got into getting into cars and stuff, it was always these older people I would meet that were car people. I would just sit and listen to them or listen to their stories. Well, that's what this model, just kind of seeing this box art, it just brought this memory to me. There was this place I lived at for a very short time, really, only about a year. And across the street was this older guy. At that time, he was probably in his 50s, probably about the age I am now. And man, this dude was a hot rodder. He really loved 53 F100s. He was actually in the middle of building a Pro Street 53 F100, like from the ground up. He had a cab. That was it. He had cab and the fenders, and I in this video right here I actually talked about him because I built this model, was inspired by this truck he was building. He made his own jig, all this stuff. The guy always had stuff. He had this cool shop in his garage that he had built off, extended it backwards, just a 2-car garage in a regular old neighborhood, just extended it back farther, and he almost had like these separate rooms. There was this little room in between. He specialized in building transmissions, and he still would have like jobs that would come in and he'd build transmissions, but he had a complete full-on machine shop or, well, fabrication shop, I should say, really. There was some tools to machine and stuff like that, but he had everything in his garage. He could do anything in there, and he could build complete cars. And he was kind of hated in the neighborhood, The hot rodders are always hated. I'd hear people yelling at him when he'd be out in the garage working, and he would tell them to, I just dug the old guy. And one day he came walking up. The house I lived in an apartment that was a converted 2-car garage. And there was this one window where the garage door used to be. It was a good-sized window. Through my window, you could see on the wall I had all my model cars built on a shelf. And he came over one day, just walked right up. My window was open, leaned in like it was a bar. He says, "Those model cars of yours over there are pretty neat." And it's like, oh, his name was Don. And that's how we met. He just came over and did that. He really liked my model cars, thought they were neat. And I go, well, I don't know. I think what you're doing over there is pretty neat. He says, come on over anytime, man. You want to check stuff out? Come on over. I got into the habit of kind of going over there, and I could just kill hours. And I'd be over there. He was a night owl, so I'd go over there late at night. I could go over there at 10 o'clock at night, and I'd be there till 2 or 3 in the morning, just talking to him and listening to him stories. And he really was a huge influence on me. And, you tend to get these people that come into your life, and you think about them once in a while, but then you don't, years go by that pop in your head every once in a while, but you don't think about them so much. And the reason why, when I saw that model kit, it brought me back the memory of Old Beans. His was his racing name. He used to race midgets out at Phoenix, Phoenix International Raceway, long before NASCAR was running out there, mostly Indy cars, and they used to have this thing called the Copper World Classic, and he would run those cars. He was really into them, but he came from back in the era, like in the late 50s, early 60s, and when he started running and racing and doing that stuff, and he'd tell me these great stories, like one funny, when they started mandating roll bars on the little midgets and stuff like that, him and his buddies, they'd put one together with toilet paper, not toilet paper, but the cardboard tubes from paper towels, like that. They were a little thicker back in the day. They would actually put it all, they just make a square, and they'd tape it up and paint it. Nobody would check them because they didn't want to add the weight. They didn't care about safety back then. And that's what they were doing for a while. He told me that story. And he told me a story. He showed me a picture he had up on the wall, because his garage was covered with framed pictures. And something else that is so cool that he kind of turned me on to with those framed pictures. But one picture that he had up was this old stock car, like an early 60s stock car. And he says, yeah, my buddy and I, we built that to go run at the 62 Daytona 500. I can't remember if he said that they even made it in. I should go look him up. I think his buddy drove and he built the car or whatever. But it's just, they just grabbed an old car. It was, they found a couple of wrecked late model cars. I mean, it had to be at least 2 years old to run at the Daytona 500. And they put them together, built a race car, and headed on over there. And it was a lot easier back then to build a race car from a regular street car. And, just cool stories like that. And something else he did I just thought was neat. He had all around his garage all these framed picture frames, big picture frames, but they were just full of racing stickers. Just racing stickers. And that's just something I love, racing stickers. And he got me into collecting racing stickers. And he said, you should do that, because I thought that was neat. I went and bought a couple of frames. And he gave me my first batch of racing stickers, and it took off from there, because I've always been collecting those up. I go to the race, I grab those things up, been involved in racing. Anytime I could grab any, I would always scoff some for myself. And over the years, I made quite a few of these picture frames, and I still, to this day, in my garage, I have these frames. Everybody always thinks they're neat. People that know me, have been to my house, have seen them. I just have these picture frames on the wall in my garage that are just racing stickers. I just think it's the neatest way to collect those things. It always looked cool. So this guy was kind of a big influence in my life. It was like the beginning of my interest at getting into cars heavily and racing and wrenching on them. And I was really curious, and I wanted a hot rod, and hot rod. I wanted to be a hot rodder. That is, I had my Nissan pickup, 4-wheel drive, which I tinked around with, and I loved that truck, and it was a really cool truck. But boy, I hadn't ever got my first car that I was gonna, kind of play around with, and he was kind of like the influence of, one day I want to have a garage like that. One day I want to build cars and mess around with stuff like that. So the model kit, I'm going on with the story. The model kit. So one day he happened to have that Ford kit, he happened to have that Revell 34 Ford kit, and a can of emerald green Testors paint. He picked it up at one time. He said he thought he'd build the model. He likes 34 Fords, and just asked me if I would build it. I said, oh, heck yeah, I will. I'd love to do that for you. He took all this time to talk to me and gave me all these stickers and stuff like that, and sent me on my way of having this sickness of being into cars and hot rodding and all that. So I took it home and I built it, and I'm going to tell you, this is a terrible kit. It really is. I mean, in my humble opinion, my memory also is of back in those days. But I tried to do some customizing to it. I was talking to him about, hey, I want to try this and that, and a couple things, they didn't work. But he said, yeah, do whatever you want. I don't care. I just want to have that, it green. And so I basically shot that emerald green onto that black plastic, so it made the emerald green really dark, and I laid those flame decals down, and it turned out pretty good. He was thrilled with it, but that thing was such a bear. I could not stand that. That thing has intricate the suspension is insane in that kit, and it's really kind of old. I mean, they really tried to do a lot. Revell was known for that, getting really crazy with the engineering, but they didn't quite have the technology back then to do that kind of engineering and scale. So things were very fiddly, because it had like a independent rear suspension that was like from a Jaguar, independent rear suspension with a quick change on the back, and it was all chrome. And oh man, I remember that thing was misery to put together. But I got it together and I gave it to Beans, and he just loved it. And I just thought that was just neat to do that, to give that to him. So that memory of this man that I met that was such a big influence. I'm just this 20-year-old kid, and he was cool enough to allow me to come over and bother him and hang out and ask questions about cars. And there was a lot of things. I mean, when I would set up my garages, as I finally had my own garages and cars and stuff, I kind of would do some of the similar things that he did in his garage. And he collected intake manifolds. He just liked them. He just would go. He was the first one who ever told me about the Pomona swap meet. He said he'd go to Pomona and he would just comb that whole big Pomona swap meet looking for intake manifolds. And he had some zany ones. So he had this middle room in his garage that was kind of where his build table was for building his transmissions, rebuilding those. And he had this wall that was just full of, it's kind of like what we have with our wall of model kits, but he had a wall of shelving that had intake manifolds on it. And he had some of the rarest ones. It was just cool. I remember he had, they were crazy intakes. And I actually started collecting up intakes. I had a shelf in my garage at one time that had a bunch of intake manifolds, just in honor of him. Nothing exciting like what he had, but there was all these little bits and pieces. But the models, first of all, that's how I became friends with this guy, is because he thought my models were neat. And I got this respect from this old hot rodder. I'm this young kid, usually a 58. Yeah, me, if I met some 20-year-old kid, they annoy me. I'm not that nice. But really, he to kind of take me, allow me to come over and nag him and talk about cars and learn from him about cars. You know, just listening to the stories, and him setting me up with all the stickers. Just seeing, model cars kind of brought that into my life. And he was a huge influence. And then to just see a box art of a kit, and it rushed all these memories of Don, a.k.a. Beans. A couple of years ago, I found out that Don died, and I was kind of bummed about that, And I remember it was on Facebook, and I did an honor to him. I showed, I wanted his wife to see it. And the person that was kind of let me know actually lives across the street from Don. They never moved. They're actually not very far from here. And I said, well, show his wife this. It's like, I still do this. This is all because of Don, I still have these big picture frames full of stickers and stuff, all because of him. And so, a little bit of his legacy is on me. And so seeing that kit just brought me memories of, the influence this man had on me. And now I got to hunt that kit down. I want that kit. I just love that box art. Don't want to build that kit. Oh, goodness gracious. No, I do not want to build it. But if I do build it, I will paint it emerald green and put those flame decals on it, and I will build it. And I'll put beans on the door. So that might be a build I'll do. Maybe I'll do that one day. But I definitely do want to hunt that kit down. I just want to have it in my collection. Just because, like I've said before, I have a lot of kits in my collection that I have them just because of what they meant to me. They bring back a memory. Because I've been doing this model building since I was 18 years old. I'm 58 now. 58, 57, I don't know. I never remember how old I am. I think I'm 57, or I'm going to be 57. I don't know. Well, I have to do some adding in my head. Anyways, we're talking about a long time. Big portion of my life has been involved with these crazy plastic things and what they mean to me, and they've been such a big part of my life. And they do. They're like songs. I look around my room right now, and I look at a particular kit, and it brings back a memory. And that kit brings back a memory. And that kid over there brings back a memory. Even these, they have memories to them. And I recently have acquired them over the past couple of years and becoming friends with these guys from Sovino's JR Models, which means a lot to me. It's the friendships. It's the people that it makes this hobby stay together for me personally, and the box art reminds me of all those. So I just want to share that with you guys. I hope I didn't bore the heck out of you. It's kind of a long me blah blah blah, but I'm not blowing my face off. I'm not doing anything that's controversial or complaining about anything. I got nothing to complain about, except I'm working on a video right now for you guys. I hope to have it out tomorrow. That is taking me a long time, a little longer than I thought it would. It was going to be today's video. That I'll complain about. But in the meantime, man, I'm going to send you all off with an oldie but a goodie. Keep gluing those fingers together and keep cutting that styrene. And we will see you in the next video. And here's the producers.
Are you crying? Are you crying? There's no crying. There's no crying in baseball.